Good morning, Australia, and welcome to our listeners in America tonight. You're live on Radio Tony with your host, Tony Lontis. We've got a jam-packed show today with an interesting guest called Chantel Vanderhagen from Unfold Your Freedom. She'll be sharing some wonderful knowledge with us today. Firstly, a big shout out to my radio technician, Rebel, who keeps me on time and on target and organises all the technical stuff, which I wouldn't be able to do. If you know someone who'd like to be interviewed on air who has written a wonderful book, then drop me an email at tonylontisauthor@gmail.com. That's TONILONTISAUTHOR@gmail.com. So my voice is still a bit croaky this week, so bear with me. I've got some lozenges on hand to get me through this show. If you'd like to pop on over to my website, tonylontis.com, and check out my guests in detail, you can see my latest blog or contact me, see what I'm up to. Join me on social media on Facebook, Tony Lontis. My Facebook group is Journey to Resilience. And I have a Facebook page for my book, Resilience. I'm on Instagram and Twitter as Tony Lontis. So today it's also my son's birthday, and he's 28 years old today. This morning I was pondering just where that time had gone. He was a little bit of a troublemaker before his birth, and I ended up in hospital at 28 weeks pregnant with a condition called polyhydramnios. And that's too much fluid around the bub, and it's quite dangerous. So I went into hospital, and he arrived about 6 weeks early after a very scary emergency C-section, and where his heart rate plummeted below 20 beats per minute and mine skyrocketed. It was all good in the end. I had a general anaesthetic, and he spent little time in neonatal intensive care, and he's now a big, fit, strong lad about to make his way in the world. He's just finished his physiotherapy doctorate, and I'm really excited for the journey he has ahead. So in world news this week, it has been a week of royal babies with the arrival of Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor. So little Archie arrived to the obvious excitement of his father, Prince Harry and Meghan, and they all seem very fit, healthy and well, and the baby is gorgeous. Also this week, Amy Schumer and her husband Chris Fisher welcomed their bundle of joy. Jean Atta Fisher is the first child for the couple. A wonderful welcome to them too. There's been another mass shooting in the US this week, 5 miles from the Columbine High School. The site of one of the country's most notorious shootings 20 years ago. I can't quite believe that it's 20 years since that first horrible shooting. America's latest school shooting unfolded at the Science, Technology, Engineering and Math School at Highlands Ranch in the affluent suburb of Denver. A very sad state of affairs. In other news, David Beckham won't be driving his fleet of luxury cars anytime soon after the star lost his licence over an indiscretion that was called in by a member of public. David Beckham was banned from driving for 6 months for using his phone at the wheel of his $125,000 Bentley. Yes, my listeners are commenting it's 20 years since Columbine, and one would wonder if things have changed very much if we're still having mass shootings in American schools. It's very sad. In other news, the much-loved New Zealand Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, become engaged over Easter. Jacinda's team confirmed the news just recently. Her press secretary said the PM had been engaged to her longtime partner, Clark Gayford, during the Easter break and had been wearing the ring on her middle finger. The couple have a 10-month-old daughter, Neve. In other news this week, a BBC radio presenter was fired for a racist tweet about Meghan and the royal baby. the radio host Danny Baker launched into a furious tirade after he was swiftly sacked for comparing Meghan and Harry's baby to a monkey. I'm truly shocked that in this day and age, someone on radio could call a baby a monkey. What planet is this DJ living on, for goodness sake? In further news, the Pope changes the church law making reporting of sex abuse obligatory. Pope Francis today passed a message to obligate those who know about sex abuse in the Catholic Church to report it to the superiors, following a global clerical pedophilia scandal. Every diocese in the world will now be obligated to have a system for reporting of abuse under the new law published by the Vatican. But the requirement will only apply to secrets revealed to priests in confessional. So I'm not sure that that quite goes enough in stemming their obvious problem with pedophilia in the church. So one of my listeners has commented that the BBC must not have freedom of speech. Well, I would argue that calling someone's baby a monkey is not really in the true spirit of freedom of speech. I would err on the side of it's almost hate speech, actually. I think it's truly appalling to call a biracial baby a monkey. In other news, one of the biggest Bitcoin companies in the world has suffered a large-scale security breach. Hackers stole nearly $60 million worth of Bitcoins in a single transaction in the world's biggest cryptocurrency robberies. The head of Bitcoin said the large-scale security breach was accomplished through a variety of techniques, including phishing, viruses, and other attacks. The hackers had the patience to wait and execute a well-orchestrated act. You there, Rebel?
Hi, Tony. How are you?
Oh, God.
No
Scott
worries.
just dropped out on me.
No worries. We are live still on the air. I was talking with your guest. You want to pick right back up where we were?
Yeah, let's talk live with Chantel, shall we? Are you ready to go, Chantel?
Yes, I am, Tony. Let's just take a couple of deep breaths because I thought it might have been me first.
Oh, no. For our listeners, we've not had Skype just drop out on us before, ever. So it's a little nerve-wracking for myself, my wonderful technician Rebel, and my guest Chantel. So, yes, I'm just taking a deep breath before we start. Just wondering, did the listeners hear our conversation introducing Chantel and telling you what Chantel does? I'm wondering.
No,
if not, Chantel,
no, it cut out before then. You dropped.
It cut out before then.
Yeah, you were still doing a bit of the news when it cut out. What were you talking about? It was. To be honest, I forgot where we left off. But let's pick up since we are still live and we have been the whole time.
Yes. Yes.
Let's pick up on introducing your guest.
Excellent. Listeners, today we have the wonderful Chantel Vanderhagen from Unfold Your Freedom with us today. Chantel's purpose is to guide women to be all that they want to be by creating balance in their lives through reconnecting them to their hearts and true selves. She's an advocate of change in the way that we perceive beauty and ourselves and is a passionate philanthropist. Through the successful management of her long-term international skincare business, Frank Essential, and under the umbrella of her brand, Unfold Your Freedom, Chantel has worked with thousands of women to uncover their true beauty and unfold their creativity, desires, and joy. Chantel works with women in a unique and whole person manner to reconnect them to their original selves and help them to change and help them to get them to know themselves better. Female entrepreneurs are particularly attracted to Chantel's work due to her expertise as a successful businesswoman and her ability to assess insights through her unfolding work to cut to the core of the issue. Chantel has developed these techniques through her own experiences and training as a psychoanalyst, mediation, tapping, chakra, Reiki teacher, and an aromatherapist. Through Unfold Your Freedom, Chantel offers private consultations, online courses, small group workshops and retreats. She is an inspiring speaker and also publishes CDs. From her years of forging a path in skincare brand Frank Essential, Chantel has come to realise that women can sometimes have a false view of their own beauty. She has an inner desire to confront these perceptions that we have of beauty and challenge them in a revolutionary way. Frank Essential is more than 99% natural and organic skincare, and it's the doorway for Chantel to guide women to unfold their true beauty, bask in their own perfect imperfections and shine. So good morning, Chantel.
Good morning, Tony. What a beautiful introduction. Thank you. And thank you for... Sorry, go on.
My pleasure, Chantel.
And I think we're going to be talking about this further, but thank you for giving me the permission to shine, because I think it's so important what you're doing and Rebel supporting you, that we shine and we give ourselves permission to do that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of my first questions today was to tell our listeners about how you got into your business called Unfold Your Freedom.
I always love hearing that, because I think it's really important as women that we also know we have a story no matter who we are. Because often we always compare ourselves to other people, but they did more than me, or they're doing something globally. So I think, and it took me a long time to realize I actually have a story to tell. I actually have a beautiful story to tell, despite a lot of the hardships. And because I'm now in my 50s, it sounds like I've had a lot of trauma in my life. In many ways I have, because of course you accumulate these over the years.
You do.
But at the same time, as you know, what I'm wanting to show women is that no matter who you are and what's happened in your life, you can have a beautiful, joyful life.
Yes, definitely.
So my journey really started when I was in my teens and were living in Switzerland at the time, and unfortunately living in a violent home. And I got into Alateen, and we had to drive in those thousands of Ks to get there. Yes. And it was all in German, because I was speaking German, not English. So that really started me on this journey. And then one day when I was 18, at that point we're living in England, and my mother just turned around and said to me, I actually can't deal with you anymore. And at the time I was deeply hurt, Tony. Yeah, deeply hurt. Wow. And I now know what she meant was that, in a way, it was what actually stopped me in my tracks and went, you know what? Yeah. And then it's actually gone on ever since then. So now it became my lifelong journey to find out, who am I?
Yes.
Why do I tick the way I do? And bringing in all these different tools over the years. And this takes time, It's something we need to know. It takes time. And you have moments where you go, wow, I'm actually getting there. And then suddenly, oops, I've stepped back a bit. So we segue through our life.
Yeah.
And then finally the big thing, Mum came back to Australia.
Yeah.
And I was already living here, and Mum was always a bit of a renegade in her day. And in those days, Reiki had only just come to Perth. Normally you had to either go over east or overseas. And Mum was going on about this Reiki thing, this Reiki stuff. We all went, oh my goodness, Mum, what are you doing? Anyhow, that's how I started. And needless to say, now I'm a Reiki master, and I've never looked back in 25 years.
It's an amazing practice, isn't it? And perhaps we could just quickly explain to our listeners what the practice of Reiki is.
Practice of Reiki is, that's a really, it's actually an energy exchange.
Yes.
Because we are all made up of energy, and basically we're using or having the beautiful benefit of using universal energy. It's something outside of ourselves that comes through our bodies and through our hands. And the beautiful thing about Reiki is it supports you on every level: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
Yeah.
You don't need to go to be Reiki master. Reiki 1 is enough. And it just helps you shift energy. It helps you change who you are, because it's beautiful. It is loving. It can never be negative.
And it's gentle for listeners who aren't familiar with the Reiki practice, it's a very gentle, I've had it a number of times myself, and it's a very gentle way of working out your issues and moving bad energy. I guess you could describe it that way, Chantel?
Yes, and I really thank you for asking me to expand it, because I take it for granted because it's been in my life for so many years. Yes, it helps you shift your energy up and out. It supports you when you're feeling good. So it enhances how you're feeling, but also can help you release particularly the negative side of your feeling to create that harmony in your life.
Yeah. And so one of our listeners is just asking, it's about you as the practitioner shifting other people's energy, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And not only shifting others, but you're also shifting yourself. Because what I often say is, and this is why I do the work, is that we need to take self-responsibility.
Yes.
So, yes, I work on myself first because I really believe in that, because the more positive I am, the more beautiful that energy is. So, yes, it's working on both.
It works both ways with Reiki. Yeah. So through your business, you do meditation retreats too, don't you, Chantel?
Yes, I do, because my mother got us into this, because I just thought, like a lot of people, meditation, can't bring another thing in my life. Why would I do that? Needless to say, 15 years later, would never be without it. Yeah. But so what I decided and I wanted to do was create these beautiful retreats, again, for women to give themselves permission to not only have the time to themselves and take time away perhaps from family and what they're doing and financially. Yes. And what we do is I created a beautiful, each day we have like a workshop.
Yeah.
Where we do meditations, we do writing, we share. So we sit in circle.
Yeah.
And at the moment, because I'm doing them up in Bali, which is the beautiful, the land of the gods and love, we then go to beautiful waterfalls where we cleanse. We have beautiful homemade food where we stay. Yes. I only have 6 ladies because when it's small, it becomes personal.
Yes.
And it becomes intimate. Often women are anxious going, but sometimes it's wonderful going when you know no one, because you're all there in the same position, and it creates this, I've lost the words. It just creates a beautiful connection. Beauty, that's it.
Chantel, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we need to throw to a break, and when we come back, I have another interesting question. So over to you, Rebel. Welcome back, everyone. This morning we have a wonderful guest on our show called Chantel, and before the break we were talking about Chantel's wonderful retreats in Bali. But before we get back to talking about those glorious retreats, I have a wonderful question from our listeners who is curious about do you absorb the negative energy from others, Chantel? So we were talking about the practice of Reiki, and our listener wants to know if you absorb that negative energy.
Really good question, because in the beginning I did, because I didn't understand or to appreciate how to not do that. So yes, you can. Even though Reiki and energy is actually pure, beautiful, loving energy, I had to learn not to take on people's energy, whether it be negative or intense. So in fact, when I first went into the work, because I was doing massages and all that as well, I actually ended up, apart from things in my own life, I actually ended up having a nervous breakdown because I had taken on people's energies. I'd overdone it. And this is what we're talking about. I didn't feel confident. I didn't feel I was enough. So I kept giving, and therefore absorbing, because I just wanted to be there for everyone, the shining light. And I've learned, now I know what I need to do to protect myself. And even then, you can still get in, because we're humans. We want to support others. We want to feel touched by their stories.
Yeah. So before we go on to our next little section, which is called Give Yourself Permission to Be Confidently You, is there anything else you want to say about your wonderful retreats in Bali, Chantel?
Yes, basically, I love them. What happens is you get beautifully cocooned. When you go there, you actually feel safe to share. You feel safe to be witnessed, because that's what's important. Most of us don't feel safe. We don't know how to share, feel confident, and to be able to put things out there, to find our voices. And then you have all these most amazing conversations. So yes, we are in a workshop style, then we go and have coffees, we have beautiful dinners, and we actually share things. And also you have plenty of time. I give you also space to be able to go to the markets, take time to read, and Take time to
Yes.
absorb
Yes.
what you are experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds beautiful, Chantel. So tell me more about this concept of giving yourself permission to be confidently you.
Well, something I've learned over the years, obviously through myself and my work, is that as children, we are told what to do. And I'm not sure about how many of you out there have had the opposite experience, but I think many of us had the experience where we were told what to do. We weren't given freedom of speech. We didn't know how to be. And of course, initially, we need to rely on our parents.
Yes.
And we are wired, therefore, to ask for permission. So it'd be our parents, our relatives, the church, the school. So what I found happened was that we were conditioned to always ask. We weren't conditioned to be able to stand there and say, actually, no, because I know in my case, my father never accepted me. I had to do him what he wanted, plan A, plan man. I had to say and think how he thought.
Yeah, yeah.
And I find that is very debilitating. So when we get older, we don't realize that we don't know how to be ourselves, fully ourselves. We think we are, but in fact, we're often not.
Yeah, yeah. So we need to realize as we become adults that we are the authors of our own lives, aren't we? So in that whole giving ourselves permission to be ourselves is actually knowing what we're here, what our purpose on this life is. And we all have a purpose, don't we, Chantel?
That's exactly right. And as we said earlier, we all have a purpose. We all have a story. And what I'm also learning is that you don't need to do great things and global things, because that comes back to us comparing to each other. That we're not free when we feel like that. You can have the most amazing difference within your family, within your community, with just being who you are. Because at the moment, I'm going through a huge period of withdrawing a lot. And my mother's taking me on a journey. She's going into dementia. She is 90. And I realized, you know what?
Yeah.
As long as I am here and loving who I am and just sharing that beautiful energy with others, letting go of how I feel I should be, how I feel I need to be.
That word should, that word should is a powerful deterrent and stops us from being who we should be. We think we should be doing this, we should be doing that, we should be. No, sometimes you just need to sit and just be led intuitively, don't you, Chantel?
That's exactly right. And I think it's also coming back to feeling beautiful. You know, who are we comparing ourselves to? You know, the media really play on our insecurities, because that's what marketing is all about, playing on our insecurities. And it distresses me beyond measure that we forever feel we're not enough. We're not beautiful enough. We're not intelligent enough. Yeah, all the shoulds, instead of just being who we are. Because what that means is we're actually outside of our bodies. We're outside of ourselves.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And we're actually, like you said, we don't know how to sit in silence and commune with our own souls and be with ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. One of our listeners is asking, what shoulds are there in life? Do you want to take that one, Chantel?
Oh, my gosh. Another great question.
It is, yeah.
That is actually that's actually a personal one. The shoulds are basically, I should be doing this, I should look like this, I should be saying this. It's everything where you feel there's an element of guilt.
Yeah, yeah.
Where there's an element of you're not enough.
Yeah, yeah. When really everyone is enough. We are all imperfectly perfect and unique in our own way, aren't we? And that comes with accepting, doesn't it?
It comes with acceptance. Exactly right. It boils down to accepting yourself for who you are and being confident in that space. I mean, I'm more confident than I've ever been, and I love who I am. And it doesn't mean that I can't get knocked. It doesn't mean that I still don't have those moments where I think, oh my God, I should be, looking this certain way. I should be doing my business in a certain way. And therefore, and I've noticed when I do that, I go into fear, I go into anxiety, and then I begin to actually stress.
Yeah, yeah.
Which means I'm outside of my body.
Yeah. And another question from our listeners, is anything really good enough? Another great question.
It is. Do you know what? Yes, it is, but it's your attitude. It's our attitude.
Yes.
I mean, and the thing is, it's my attitude, our attitude, but it is also about striving. I always want to improve who I am, to feel even more confident, comfortable. I'm loving where I'm going with my life. I'm loving that I'm becoming what a friend coined the maga woman, which is an Italian word for not quite the wise woman yet, but I'm loving stepping into menopause. I'm loving being in who I am. So I feel that I'm enough for who I am now. Mm-hmm.
I think, as I know myself, we're about the same age, Chantel. I think there's something that comes with turning 50. There's a wisdom and a quiet confidence in realising that you are imperfectly perfect, and allowing yourself to really like who you are. And I think that comes with that wisdom of age, don't you think, Chantel?
Yes, I do. And I think that's a really good word, is about liking yourself, because something I have to learn the difference between loving and liking. That I can love someone because they're a beautiful human being with a heartbeat, doesn't mean I like them.
Yeah.
But what's important, everyone, is that we actually like ourselves.
Yes. And that's standing in front of the mirror, looking yourself in the face and going, I like you. And then once you have that deep like for yourself, then the horribleness of the world, the criticism of the world, it tends to fall away and fall off us a lot more easily. And without taking hold of that criticism from everyone else, you then become a better person. You react better, you live better, you interact as a human better, don't you think, Chantel?
Yes, I think you do. And you respond. You have a whole different take on life.
Yeah.
And you'll take a whole different sense of yourself. And all I can say is, that's what I want for all of us to feel, get away from the shame, get away from the feeling uncomfortable, get away from that fear. Because what we do, well, I know what I did, is I kept myself safe. Even though it was uncomfortable being that, I kept myself safe.
Yes.
So therefore I limited myself in my world.
Yeah. One final question before we finish up this segment and go to the next break is, why do you think it's important to be confident in who we are?
When you're confident in who you are able to speak your voice, you're able to speak your opinions, you're able to say no, you're able to step out and be proud of who you are. And I mean that word proud in the sense of delighted. You want to be out there, and you're intelligent, or you're creative, because as women in particular, we're not allowed to be actually feel that. And particularly the Anglo-Saxon upbringing I had, I wasn't allowed to say, hey, I'm really good at what I do. Hey, I'm intelligent, or I'm beautiful. So I would like listeners to think about, how does that make them feel when I say that? Because often we recoil. How dare she say that? She shouldn't be saying that, because that often makes us feel uncomfortable when we actually want to feel that too. Yeah.
So that finishes up our next little segment. We're going to throw to a break and a song. When we come back with Chantel, we're going to have a longer segment, and our next segment is called How Daydreaming Connects You to Your Soul. And it's the most interesting segment for the day, and I look forward to you all joining us back after for our daydreaming segment. And welcome back, everyone. You've just been listening to the beautiful sounds of Enigma on Radio Tony this morning, and we have a wonderful guest today called Chantel from Unfold Your Freedom, who is our psychoanalyst, meditation, tapping, chakra and Reiki teacher. And this session is called How Daydreaming Connects You to Your Soul. So, Chantel, how does daydreaming connect you to your soul?
Oh, I was so excited when you asked me that, because I had such pleasure when I thought about the topic and wrote my blog.
Yes.
About it, and realizing, and I know you'll be talking about a bit later, the difference between the types of daydreaming. Now, in this case, daydreaming for me was about allowing yourself just to go off into a different realm, not to disconnect, because often we can use daydreaming to disconnect from trauma. But this was more to just allow yourself. It opens you up to start freeing yourself.
And daydreaming is something we do naturally as a child, And as we get to be adults, sometimes we no longer daydream. That's true, isn't it, Chantal?
It is. It's somehow we feel, well, I know I felt this, I had to be an adult. I needed to adult now.
Yeah.
And that was only for children. But what we lose is that beautiful exquisiteness of being a child. And this is what I've been loving when I've been learning meditation and the Buddhist beliefs. It's not going, I love going back to be childlike. You know, when you look at a child delights in things, I think we've lost, and I know I lost that sense of delight. You know how they say smell the roses?
Yeah.
Literally smell the roses. You delight in the food that you cook. You delight in a smile. You delight in that lovely warm shower. And daydreaming just helps you open you up back into that space of curiosity.
And daydreaming is about creating the impossible, isn't it? So I know when I dream, I have great, big, grand visions of what I can achieve in life. And I guess daydreaming can be thought of as a seeding process in your mind, isn't it?
It is. Sorry, go on.
No, go on, Chantal.
No, I agree with you, because when we think of big things, we think of impossible, not me, why me, can't do that. So what daydreaming does, it opens you up to what is holding you back. So when you sit quiet, and that's why I call daydreaming is also being mindful and meditating. Because when either whether you sit quietly or it might be going on for your walks, it could be when you're cooking, it doesn't matter where it happens, but when you can start opening yourself up and beginning to become aware of, well, what stories am I holding on to? You know, what false beliefs are there? And that takes courage to do that, to open yourself up, to go, well, why can't I do that versus why me?
Yeah.
Why not me?
Yeah, and daydreaming is not a problem, is it?
No, it isn't a problem. As I said, it can be if you're unaware, but no, I don't think it is a problem. I think for me, it actually creates an excitement of living, you know, and it brings you such joy because, you know, as I said, when I go abroad or when I go for a new experience, I just go, right, I want to enjoy every single moment of this with the good and the bad, because sometimes, you know, things can happen. But I want to also see those moments of joy. I want to go and appreciate. I know when I went for my first ever trip to Africa to see wild animals, I made the decision, despite still being in PTSD and having anxiety and thinking I wasn't going to get on the plane, which is not me. From the moment I got on that plane to the moment I came back, I just wanted to savor. And as my French grandmother used to say, il faut goûter tout ça. You've got to savor everything. Because when we are tired, busy, overwhelmed, whatever, we don't savor things anymore.
Yeah. I've got wonderful questions coming in from our listeners. So I'll run through them quickly for us. So one of our listeners wants to know, is daydreaming a problem? And we're going, no, daydreaming is not a problem. And another is saying that they are still childlike, which is a wonderful quality to have. Is it bad to be like a child thinking?
No, this is what I've learned. This is why I love also listening to the Dalai Lama, because when you hear him, he goes into, it's a childlike quality. That's the purity. It's
a purity thing, isn't it?
It is a purity thing. And
children think without trauma or bad things. Children think in terms of everything good, don't they?
They do.
Generally speaking.
Exactly right. And, you know, when I look back, you know, and I watch just when my niece was growing up, because I haven't had children myself, you know, she took delight in her fingers. She took delight in getting to know her body. She took delight in all of that. We've lost that sense of delightness.
Yeah. So the next question is, can you define what you mean by daydream? And then the next question is, how can you not be aware of daydreaming? So I thought if we describe the difference between daydreaming and imagining.
Yes. Now, that's an interesting question. I think
it is, isn't it?
Yes, I think they can overlap.
Yes.
I think I'm going to go more down they can overlap. Basically, what daydreaming means is that, for me, I'll go how I do it. Like, I'm sitting at my desk, for example, and I'm writing a blog, or I'm trying to work out a lovely online program, or how am I going to support my clients, and particularly when a client's coming to me, I might just step away from my desk, step away from my laptop. So in this case, it's for work. And what I'll do is I'll then look out. We've got a beautiful view. I look over this beautiful valley. So what I'm doing is I'm allowing my vision, but also my mind to open.
Yeah.
And therefore, when I allow myself to open, that is when the magic can happen. Because I can go, okay, what do I need to know here? What do I need to let go of? What stories am I holding on to?
Yeah.
And then I open myself up to my soul. Now, this has taken me a long time to understand the concept of that.
Yes.
And then imagining begins to, I imagine how I want to feel. I imagine what it wants to look like. So my partner and I are going to, we've been kindly gifted a beautiful trip back to Switzerland where I was brought up. Now I'm beginning to already get into that feeling. How's it going to be? I want to feel excited. What clothes am I going to wear? I'm going to see my beautiful friends from school, eat all the delicious chocolate. So that becomes the imagination.
Yeah.
And, and you're opening yourself up to feeling alive.
Yeah. That's right. For me, it's about looking forward and thinking about what life might be like, and feeling gratitude.
Yes.
I like to try and incorporate gratitude into my daydreaming, and I daydream quite a lot. And I actually have to be careful that I'm not sitting there daydreaming when I perhaps should be doing a little bit of work. So there's a bit of balancing there, isn't there?
There is, because I think that is then when we had the previous question. Daydreaming can also become a distraction.
Yes.
And it can also be a distraction when you are not feeling comfortable. So you remove yourself out of the discomfort. So it is that fine line. Like when I was in PTSD and when I was going through that trauma, I actually found daydreaming quite difficult.
Yes. I've actually got a little question from one of our listeners, and they're asking, do the little stresses in life cause PTSD? And I'll throw to you in a minute, Chantel, but I've suffered PTSD, and for me, the PTSD wasn't caused by little stress, but the PTSD symptoms were often triggered by little stresses. So the big trauma that caused the post-traumatic stress disorder was the big thing, and then sometimes it was the little things that triggered the symptoms, so anxiety and that. Would you agree, Chantel?
Yes, I do agree with you. And something, again, I didn't know I had been triggered. When I look back now, I had a car accident 10 years ago, so that became, I had PTSD. But what I didn't realise was until a few years ago, I'd actually triggered after my father's death.
Yes.
That was 10 years before. That's nearly 20 years. So I didn't know I'd been living in PTSD for all those years. And like you said, so you need to be diagnosed. That is important, and then get professional help. So the work where I come in is when you, like how I found it for me, I had PTSD, I worked through it, but I was still a bit lost and confused. Who was I?
Yes. And
So
PTSD, it changes you forever. So you can work through it and make it better. But even for me, as much as I've recovered from my own PTSD, I know that if I allow myself to be overtired, there will be little things that trigger me into being anxious and afraid. So those little stresses are what re-triggers the PTSD, and I've just got to I do meditation, mindfulness, go for a walk in the garden, those sorts of things to break me out of my triggered state. What do you do, Chantel?
Well, I do similar, and I would like listeners to know that these are things you can do anyhow, whether you're in PTSD or not. And this is why I really want to teach and show people, bring these tools in before a trauma happens. Because let's face it, somehow we are going to have trauma in our lives, whether it be divorce, death, illness. Everyone has trauma. Doesn't mean you trigger into PTSD, so that's separate.
Yes.
So it's about coming back to what we're talking about, daydreaming and that, it's about finding your go-tos. It's about finding what you need to help you anchor. So like you, when I now know I haven't triggered for 3 or 4 years. So I'm very proud of that. But I now know my body. I need to, like you, sleep well, eat well, exercise, have fun. enjoy connecting with my clients, coming back to the childlike, seeing the joys in life.
Yeah.
I still now know that I find crowds still difficult. And that's unusual for me because I was always the gregarious one. I was always the one
I
out
find
there.
crowds difficult as well.
Yeah, noise.
Yes, the noise and the volume of people makes me quite uncomfortable, and that's when I do my deep breathing and go, you're okay, everything's fine, just keep going. Yeah. This too will pass. Those mantras I use when I'm going into crowds or have to, because we all have to go into crowds from time to time. So now back to our daydreaming. Why is daydreaming good for us, Chantel?
I think what it does, it brings a lightness in our lives. It brings a beautiful sense of well-being. It brings joy. It brings colour. It brings creativity, and it brings us back to our intuition. So I think what I found, and that's I think one of the reasons why I did have a breakdown, was I'd lost that sense of being a woman and feminine. I'd been so busy in my business, that masculine linear side, doing, whether you're in business or not, we're doers now rather than beers.
Yes.
And so I think daydreaming I just love that lovely feminine nurturing side. It helps with creativity. It helps you connect back to you, formulates beautiful relationships with your families. And coming back to what you're saying, it gives you permission to be you.
Yeah. In your daydream, you're always the best version of you, aren't you?
That's right. And even if you don't know what the best version of you is, this is the process that supports you to get there. You slowly learn, you know what? I am beautiful. I am fun. I am all those things, and I'm allowed to be. I can give myself permission to be that, and then to operate from that beautiful space of our hearts.
Yeah.
Our beautiful space of our femininity.
Yeah. And daydreaming also gives your mind, body and soul a bit of a break from that hard work and busyness of life and business and being a mum, being a dad. It gives you a bit of a break, doesn't it?
It does. Actually, that's another good point, because often when we don't realise, because it becomes so habitual also in our bodies, you don't realise how tight and tense your body is. So if we're sitting here now, just tune into your body. How do you feel? Are your shoulders up? Because we're so used to not knowing that and feeling that. So I want everyone now to take a breath and just drop your shoulders and become aware of, oh my God, this is how tight I am. This is how on edge I am. Because this is the thing when the illnesses happen. This is when we, put our keys in the wrong place. This is when we knock ourselves on, suddenly you've got this bruise on your leg. How did I do that? You weren't aware that you perhaps knocked yourself on the table as you're charging past because you have 10,000 things on your mind. So when you daydream, what you do is you start releasing all those have-to-dos, that huge to-do list.
Yes.
And it re-energizes you.
Yeah. It's a very good practice to, from time to time, sit and be aware of your body. And if you sit quietly and recognize, oh, my shoulders are a bit tense, and give them a wriggle, or my butt's a bit tense sitting in this chair, or my calf muscles are tight, because sometimes you can go for a very long time without realizing that where the tension is sitting in your body. We're so busy being busy with life that we don't acknowledge our body and how our body feels. And that's where daydreaming comes into play, isn't it? If we just go and, I have a big back veranda, so just go and sit on the back veranda and just take a deep breath and go, and then sit for a while. And we tend to forget to just sit and do nothing for small periods of time, don't we, Chantel?
We do. Exactly, because we shouldn't do that. We're not allowed to. We're perceived as lazy. Oh, how dare you sit down and enjoy your hot cup of tea rather than the cold cup of tea or coffee. Yeah. And the other thing about you saying about sitting quietly, what I'm learning to do, there's that beautiful saying, dance like no one's watching. Why don't we just dance around the house? That music you played, oh my God, Enya, thank you. That just sang to my soul. And I could feel myself starting to move as I was listening to the music, and it was getting me more open, more excited to chat to you all again, rather than closing up, because often we are closed. I want my heart to be open Yet
Yeah.
to be able to protect myself from what someone asked earlier about the negativity. So it's that fine line between heart open to experiencing what we are. Because let's face it, right now, what you are doing with us, me with Tony and us, is this most beautiful experience. And I want to actually feel that every moment that we are experiencing it.
Yeah, because it is a joy and a privilege to be able to speak to our listeners from all over the world, essentially. We don't know who's listening and who might need to hear this message today, who might need to be reminded about the importance of daydreaming and meditation and being present, and who may have never heard of things like Reiki, and that it's an important message for our listeners to hear wherever they may be. So what helps us daydream more if it's so good for us, Chantel?
Well, the way, again, I'll share my experience, because this is another thing I love. I share my experience, then people can go, oh, I like that, and then adopt it, because it's all about you creating your own, what is personal for you. Because, again, it's coming back to trusting yourself. So for me, I love what I create my sacred space. It's just a space where I love to be. So I've actually got a beautiful healing room, but it can be anywhere. I've learned how to do it on the plane. I've learned how to do it where there's busyness around me. So it's how I've done it is, and then what you do when you create your lovely space, it's yours, particularly if you can find a little space in your home. You have a candle, you might have a crystal. So you put things around you that have meaning to you, and that develops and grows. I've kept mine very simple because I just want the energy flow.
Yes.
And then you basically make a date with yourself. And I think we're going to be talking about this a bit later, so I'll go more into that then. It's about you giving yourself permission. Basically, it's not only the space, it's the time.
Yes.
Like what you just said earlier, it's giving yourself the time to sit on the balcony or sit outdoors, even with your cuppa, and just allow yourself to sit and go,
Yes.
oh my gosh, and just enjoy the sounds if you are in the bush or nature. That is it. That is all you need to do. It's nothing more than that.
You can, for our listeners, you can go to a park. You can, don't laugh when I say this, but for some men, going and sitting in the loo or the toilet.
Actually, don't worry, some women too.
Quiet space.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's under the shower. Have a hot bath. And I think, coming back to something you said earlier, like what we're doing here, it's about we are trusting what we are doing here. So again, it's learning how to trust. It's learning how to free flow. So even though we today have this, we talked about what we were going to do and what we want to say, but it's also about trusting and free flowing. It's about intuiting.
Yeah. And listening to those questions from our listeners, and I love the questions that our listeners send through to us, because they often cause us to think or view things in a different way, so that we're communicating in a way that people understand. And that's really important, isn't it, too, when we're talking about these sorts of things, to talk about them in a way that is easily understood and easily practiced, because these things are good for you. They're good for your soul, they're good for your mind, they're good for your body. Just wondering, are there things that stop you from daydreaming, Chantel?
Oh, yes. Again, the shoulds. I shouldn't be doing that. I should be on my business. I should be this. I should be cleaning the house. So all those, that's what someone...
I should be making that phone call. I should be writing that letter. I should be vacuuming the floor.
Exactly right. And that little bit of dust over there. Because particularly when you don't want to do something, when you have to do something that's confrontational or out of your comfort zone, or you need to speak to someone, you'll find
difficult conversations, isn't it?
Yes.
If you have to... have a difficult conversation with someone about something, you feel it in your soul, that angst of, I really don't want to do this, but knowing that you have to do it. And if you just sit for a few minutes and go, okay, I have to do this, nice deep breaths, cup of tea, cup of coffee, something nice to drink, I'm going to do this, it's going to be okay. Yes, it's going to be hard, but I'm going to do it. Isn't that so?
That's right. And I think that's coming back to daydreaming, or you can bring in or visualization, because what I do is when you start feeling confident about yourself, it does get easier. However, some of them are difficult. So that's when I sit in my place and then and that's when I start to open myself up. How do I want to feel? How does this person make me feel? What the stories am I creating? They're a human being like me. So that's when I use, like you said, when I feel confident in me, when I can stand firm in me, it doesn't mean I don't wobble.
Yeah.
That supports me in my daily life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I can also go, you know what, it's also about setting your boundaries. When I can go, you know what, that person, now sometimes it's not always appropriate to speak to that person, but I can actually go, you know what, that actually hurt me. It's about us as women also acknowledging when we've been hurt. Yes. We don't need to people please. We don't need to gloss over. We can actually stand firm and say, you know what, that was not right. That was not nice.
No, yeah. In our conversation about daydreaming, I just want to mention too that daydreaming is a gateway to creativity and problem solving, isn't it?
Yes.
Chantel?
Yes, it is. It is about creativity, and something I had to learn over the years because I was the good Capricorn, and again, the way I was brought, I was fearful of creativity. Creativity doesn't actually always mean art. It also means how you live your life, how you want to think, feel, dress.
Yes.
And that's what I'm loving about this, because I know for me, I love wearing colour, and I'm loving putting different colours together, but also different patterns, and how I love to wear my hair, how I want to come across, and how I move my body. So it helps with that side. And so what was the other thing you asked? It was creativity and...
problem solving.
That's right. And the other thing, brilliant problem solving. When most of us react, we have a knee-jerk reaction, whether we either react to the person or we walk away, because there's two ways. Mine was always blah on someone, whereas others will walk away and then feel hurt, and those things build up. So when you, again, can daydream, sit quietly, and again, we'll go into this more when we do the rituals.
Yes.
It actually helps you to get solutions or outcomes, or even if you don't find a solution, resolution for yourself.
Yes.
That it becomes important in our lives.
Yeah. So you can think of daydreaming as a practice of quietly thinking through things, be that good, bad issues, isn't it? Daydreaming comes into that quietly thinking about things, doesn't it, Chantel?
It does, and I found it's become like my best friend, because when I'm daydreaming, I feel safe.
Yes.
And it's only about me. I don't have to worry about what anyone else is thinking. I can sit and write took me a while. So initially when I was first started doing this, I'd write in black, but even then I couldn't write negative things, particularly not certain words, certain swear words. Now it's like that's okay. So because I can feel safe, no one's going to judge me. Well, I did initially, but you get to the point, no one's going to judge me. I can write this and I can go blah all over that piece of paper, and either you burn it, tear it up, whatever. It is the most liberating thing that you can do, is to start writing, because it gets it out of your head, it gets it out of your body, and then you can start working with that, get clarity.
That's actually a good point for our listeners to note, that if you've got a difficult person to speak to, a difficult situation, any of those difficult things, if you take a moment and sit and write about how it's making you feel, what you'd really like to do but probably won't do, and how you'd like to resolve the situation. If you sit and write that out, it frees your mind then to perhaps react in a better way, perhaps handle the situation in a better way, perhaps get a better outcome, because you're not reacting in your the first way that you want to react. You're taking time to step back and react in the right way. And I believe that daydreaming and journaling go together in this space, in trying to release you from making bad decisions or perhaps reacting in anger and spite. Wouldn't you say, Chantel?
Yes, I do. And I think coming back to daydreaming can be with journaling. It can also be with artwork, and can be in any way. But yes, because, when you do art, you can express. I agree. What I found when I did that, I actually took the emotion out, because most of us don't respond well when someone's all over you, whether they're right or wrong. So, of
Yeah.
course, you jack up and go, well, I'm not going to admit that I made it. But, then you react back. And then that's how world wars start, so to speak. But, even
Yeah.
within families and friends. So
Yeah.
what I do is I find by writing it takes the emotion out. Then what I can do is go through the process of looking what is important to me, where are my boundaries, what is the story.
Yeah.
Then I can go back and say, well, how do I want to respond rather than react? And then I'm more likely to create then a conversation.
Yes, yes, yes. So when we were talking about the spaces where you daydream,
Mm-hmm.
you can daydream like almost anywhere, really.
Mm-hmm.
Again, walking in nature, at the beach, in the woods, painting, writing, dancing, listening to music. There's endless possibilities, isn't there?
There is on the train going to work.
Yes.
Wouldn't what I do is I don't daydream when I drive, but I allow myself to just be present. Obviously you've got to support, but I don't daydream in the car, but I sometimes allow myself to what I call free flow. So I'm present with driving, obviously,
Yes.
but then I just allow myself to open myself up, because sometimes being in the car, you've got no one making demands on you. You can turn the radio off put your favorite music on and just allow yourself to be. So, oh my gosh, yes, daydreaming you can do anywhere. And that's what I love about this. When you finally give yourself, coming back to what we used to beginning, permission to be yourself, and you give yourself permission to make the time for you because you are important.
Yes, and it is about recognizing that you are important in the world. I know a lot of people tend to think that they're insignificant and not important, but I just again want to remind people that there's only one you in the world.
That's right.
And no one is the same as you. No one has the same background, life experience. Everyone is unique, and it's about recognizing that in your uniqueness, you have a unique impact on the world.
That's right.
And it may not be in terms of being like Oprah, for instance. It may be in simple terms of being the best mum or the best dad. For the mums and dads out there, you might be raising the next President of the United States, the next Nobel Prize winner. We don't know these things, so recognising that even in your everydayness, there is power and uniqueness, isn't there, Chantel?
There is. And when you say that, what comes up is joy that we're talking about, but sadness that so many of us don't actually understand how unique we are, how beautiful we are, how incredible we are as individual human beings when we're so busy comparing, feeling uncomfortable, feeling shame. I was just talking here, what stops us from daydreaming is ourselves, because we don't believe in ourselves. We weren't taught to believe in ourselves, you know. Because we've had limitations put on us, they become ours. We have self-imposed limitations.
Yes.
Then you go into fear of, I'm not doing it right. How do I do it? Because we're not taught to believe and trust in our own abilities.
Yeah.
You know, and we might feel silly. Is it childish rather than childlike? You know,
and it's not childish at all, is it?
Exactly right. And daydream is, as you said, a great way to creativity, to self-realization, to being who you are, you know?
Yeah.
And why wouldn't you want to love and know who you are? That's my journey now, and that's why I love doing what I'm doing through both the skincare and that. Because when you feel beautiful on the outside, your skin, you feel confident. Because let's face it, people see your face and your hair. You can't hide that.
Yes.
So then when you feel, then I also support it from the inside, because you also got to have that inner confidence, that inner sense of beauty, you know.
Yeah.
And I don't know if people know, there's a gentleman I love listening to, Hal Dorskin. He does a Sedona method.
Right.
And his take is, as you release your stories, you can see what is true here and now.
Yes.
I just love that.
Yes.
And that is, not only do you see what's true here and now, it's in your life, but in you.
Yeah.
And I love that quote.
Yeah. Chantel, in listening to you speak, then I'm thinking about your Bali retreats again. And how often do you go to Bali?
At the moment, I'm doing them once a year.
Yeah.
And as I get myself more people knowing, I'll do them twice a year. But at the moment, I'm doing once a year, and my next one's next May.
Yes. Yep.
Also to give people the time to get to know me, to think about it, to look at their budgets, because often we make these big commitments a year in advance, whether we go on holiday and retreat. Often with a retreat, particularly as women and mothers, I can't go away without my family. I should be going on holiday.
Yes.
So my next one is next May.
Yes.
And I'm hoping, and I'm saying this a little bit out of turn, I'm looking at organising with someone, one in Cambodia in March. We're still getting the dates, but definitely Bali in May.
I'm pretty passionate about Bali as well in terms of being a healing little country. And I know for our US listeners that Bali's quite a long way away for you, but for my fellow Australians, Bali is really very close. And I know many years ago it had a bad rap because a lot of Australians were going and partying outrageously. But there's another side to Bali, Chantel, that is are beautiful. The people are beautiful, and it's surrounded by healing mountains, and it's a wonderful place for restorative and healing retreats, isn't it, Chantel?
Oh, it is. And as you hear that, I can feel it, yes, particularly when you go up into the hills, and obviously I go up to Ubud because, like you said, down, unfortunately, that's put me off at Bali initially. But even coming from long distance, I've made it 7 days, and in that time, not only do we have workshops, we also have a day where we do some sightseeing, but also a day restorative day. So you have a day for yourself. Yes. And what I suggest to people, like I mentioned when I went to Africa, I decided to start being on retreat from the moment I packed my suitcase and got on that plane.
Yes.
And just going, oh my gosh. And someone put this to me, because I don't particularly like long flights anymore, but I was being
They're not very good, are they?
No, they're not. But I was being served. I could read my book. I could watch a movie, and suddenly you get that real sense of freedom and therefore the excitement. So when you land, I have everything organized. For people who, some people are anxious about flying. So all I say is you get yourself to Denpasar Airport. From there, I have the driver pick you up, and you don't do anything until you leave. And if you want to do other things, it's worth tacking a week on, whether you want to stay in Bali or go elsewhere. And then you make it into this most beautiful retreat and holiday. Yes,
because for Australians, and particularly for our American listeners, Bali is really good bang for your buck. So you can go and have delicious full days in the spa for not very much money at all. And I tell you, Balinese massages are divine. They are the best things.
Yeah. And when you are on a retreat, even more so than a holiday, you give yourself permission. Anyhow, I organize all that. Like you said, I had that all. We have it 3. Oh my gosh, you'll love. You give yourself permission to do things you wouldn't normally do. You give yourself permission to be able to perhaps get up a bit later. Yes, the only thing I request is that we are punctual when we do the workshops. However, what I also want women to be able to do is say, you know what, today I need some time for myself. Or to say, look, today I need a break. Or look, I want to be in the group, but can I just be quiet? Because it's about us learning how to just be there. And it's okay, because again, we please everyone. Again, we've been taught how to listen to authority. We don't know then how to say. So I know for me, I used to put myself in situations, oh my goodness, where I was not safe, and I didn't know how to go, you know what, no, I don't need to do that. And plus I don't want to do that.
Well, Chantel, it's time for another break now. Listeners, when we come back with Chantel, we're going to be talking about morning rituals, which will be a great segment as well. So I'll throw to Rebel now for a short break, and we'll join you again with more from Chantel for morning rituals. Today we have the wonderful Chantel online with us today, and our next segment is talking about morning rituals and the importance of morning rituals. So Chantel, what's your morning ritual?
Oh, my morning ritual is I wake up, no matter how well I've not slept or how I feel, is I love going, again, we talked about earlier, my sacred place, or my place where I just love being. with myself. So what I do is I have my lovely warm lemon water because I don't drink tea or coffee. So this is coming right down to the basics because it's showing people what you can do. I have make sure winter I'm warm, all that sort of stuff. And then what I do is I have a lovely, it's actually in this case a chair that from my partner's Sri Lankan great auntie. And so I love sitting in that chair and feeling the energy. And then I write. I have my journal and I often have books that I like, whether it be self-help books or whether it be spiritual books or business books. And I just allow myself to sit there. And what I do is I read, I write, gratitudes, like you say, very powerful. But what I do is I also set my intention for the day. So I set my intention, how do I want to feel? How do I want my day to look like? So coming back to I was imagining last night, and I did actually sleep well because I thought I might be too excited or too nervous. Yesterday afternoon, I just allowed myself to open up to going, how do I want to feel?
Yes.
How do I want to come across? What stories am I telling myself? So again, this is when you open up and go, and I just went, you know what? It's going to be a beautiful space. Tony holds you in the space. Listeners will want to be here because they want to be. They'll ask the most. And it's okay. And if you make a mistake or something goes wrong, that is okay too.
Yeah.
So that's basically what I do. And then the rest of then I have a delicious breakfast. We always eat well. And then depending on the time of year, whether I do my exercise, then I go for beautiful walks, or when the pool is open, I do my laps. So that is my pretty much non-negotiable. I do that every day, no matter where I am.
Yeah. I just thought I'd talk about some celebrity morning rituals that I come across and thought you might find interesting. Now, I'm not sure if many of you are familiar with Tim Ferriss, but he has adapted his own morning ritual after interviewing thousands of successful leaders from all walks of life. So Tim Ferriss, first thing he does is make his bed. It says it fills him with a small sense of pride and accomplishes something right away. Then he meditates for 10 to 20 minutes and he uses an app called Headspace. And then he does a bit of light exercise followed by a strong cup of tea. He then finishes his morning ritual with journaling for 5 to 10 minutes. And this helps him push the ball forward and feel better throughout the day. And another interesting one that I found was Oprah Winfrey's morning routine. And she starts the morning with 20 minutes of meditation, which she says fills her with hope and a sense of contentment and deep joy. She then hits the treadmill for some exercise, 15 minutes at least. And then she goes for a walk whilst listening to music and then has a nice meal. So, Chantel, these routines are just simple things that they do every morning without fail, aren't they?
Yes, they are. And I think a really important point you made here with Tim Ferriss, because often people feel, or women feel, they've got family. So how can you do it with family around? So it might be you need to get up 5 minutes earlier. But I think even making your everyday chores a ritual becomes important. So like you said, I love that, making your bed.
Yes, I've heard that quite often with leaders from across the planet, that they make their bed first thing of the morning.
I love that because I don't make it first thing in the morning. But I do make my bed before I get into my day. And it just seems to be a sense, I don't know what it is. And so you're reading that, I think it's wonderful to hear a sense of accomplishment.
Yeah. I actually have never thought that making your bed was part of a morning ritual. So I was really interested in and intrigued to find that was the case. And I thought, oh, good, excellent. Both of those guys and yourself include a small amount of exercise. Yeah. Yes.
Because, again, that's getting your body moving. Again, it's getting the oxygen. Again, it helps release tension out of your body. And something I also, and see, you note here what they're saying. You don't need to sit for an hour and meditate. It can be 5 minutes, 10. You need to do what's right for you. And I found when I teach meditation, people go, oh, I can't, or I don't know how. Set a timer, even though that feels like it's restrictive. Initially, set yourself a timer for however many minutes you want, because then you know You're going to be truly present for that time only, rather than thinking, oh my God, is when, you know, and you're distracting yourself. So I like that idea. Sit down and say, right, for now, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes, because we've all got them on our mobiles, set your timer. And for that time, all you're going to do is be present, having a cup of tea, whatever it might be, journaling, writing, whatever. Yeah. Now, the other thing you pointed out here, and I'm sort of also wanting people to, use an app that is highly, but at the same time, I'm also saying don't use an app, because I want to teach you to become confident in being able to trust yourself without, because again, it's more noise. Again, it's a voice. Again, you're still connected to your mobile. So I think there's appropriate times for an app, yes. But I'm wanting people to start trusting themselves, to actually go within. Because when you're listening to an app, you're still hearing a voice. You're still outside of yourself. So I'm going to sort of push people to start thinking, you know what, I don't need to rely on something or someone else. I can rely on myself. And then you can go, right, today I can do this, or today I can use an app. So that is the way I'm going with the work that I do, because I think it's important we learn to trust ourselves.
Yeah, so one of the other things that I found when researching morning rituals for today's show was that a lot of people highlight gratitude as an important part of their morning ritual. So by gratitude, I mean having verbalizing, speaking about gratitude, journaling about gratitude in a gratitude journal. What else have you come across, Chantel, in terms of gratitude?
Well, that was interesting. Gratitude. Because initially I couldn't even bear the word gratitude because of my Catholic upbringing, and I just felt gratitude meant that, oh boy, I had to be grateful because that's how I was made to feel. And that was also from a personal experience. My father led me to I had to be grateful that he housed us, grateful. So I found that initially difficult. So the word I used initially was thankful.
Yes.
So that for me, so that's semantics, I know, but I just felt
I actually like the gratitude is kind of a big word.
Yes.
Thankful is kind of an everyday nice word, isn't it?
Yes. And that's how I felt for me. So I think you've actually just made a good point. So I am thankful every day for, and this is going to sound really deep, the breath that I have. Because again, when we sit quietly, we become aware of our breath. We become aware, and the breath tells you a lot about where you are at in your life and what's happening.
Yeah.
I am thankful for the warm clothes that I'm wearing now. I'm thankful for the beautiful view that I have. So what you do is, again, this is coming back to being childlike. This is coming back to smell the roses. Because initially it can seem like Pollyanna-ish. Oh, my God, listen to her being thankful. And, you know, it sounds always positive. But it's also...
But it's about the energy, Chantel, isn't it?
Exactly. You shift your mindset from nothing's right for me, from that negative, victim attitude that, I know I've had and can still have, to one of, oh my gosh, I can have control of my life. I can see all these amazing things. So I'll give you an example. About 2.5 years ago, my partner had a very frightening medical scare, and it was really traumatic. And I lost sight of meditation, gratitude, and that for a while. But eventually when I came back, what I realized was when I could go back, so this is where my go-to place became important, and my writing. I could sit there and see moments of joy and be thankful that we found out, be thankful for all that he had, medical assistance, being thankful for our friends, being thankful. So you see, that then really helped me anchor. And interesting enough, cleaning car became important. All these things, chores, became important because they normalized my life.
Yeah.
And journaling and writing became important because I could express my fears. I was fearful.
Yeah. When we're talking about writing things down, another thing that showed up in my research was that a lot of the leaders and busy people write down their most important tasks for the day as part of their morning ritual.
That is a good point, because often we have big to-do lists.
Yeah. And they talked about only writing the really important ones down. And yes, you can keep writing lots of them down, but the really important ones, the 1 or 2 or 3 that are important to your long-term purpose and goals in life, they were the ones that were most important to get down in that morning routine space so that their day flowed, so to speak.
I think that's really, particularly if you're an entrepreneur too, but I think also it's about how do you, because, you may not be an entrepreneur, you may be going to work. So I think what I learned from that was, yes, you put down your important tasks, how you want to feel, but it's also being able to look at, God, do I really need to do that? Why have I put that into my day? Because I couldn't say no, I wanted to please, and then you don't know how to get out of it. So I think you're right. Yeah. We can extend this out into, well, where can I create space? Because often we go from one thing to the next without thought. We become mindless.
Yeah, yeah.
And we get to the end of it. Sorry.
No, I've got a couple of questions from our listeners, and one of our listeners would like to know the difference between childlike and childish, which is another great question.
It is a good question. The way I see childish is, and what's coming to mind is when you're having a tantrum.
Yes. Yes.
You can see a 2-year-old. So I'm getting a vision of this 2-year-old going, no, and just screaming just because. So that to me is childish, where someone's being childish.
And adults can be childish and throw tantrums just as much as children can.
That's exactly. I'll go off in a huff or when you don't get what you want. So that to me is being childish. Whereas childlike is when you, again, just enjoy simplicity. Okay, enjoy the simple things in life.
The exuberance of, my grandson is inanimated with, and he's almost 3, he's inanimated with anything new. So that's childlike, that exuberance for life, that exuberance for that butterfly flying over there or that grub walking along the ground. Yes. That's childlike. Wouldn't you agree, Chantel?
Absolutely. And it brings back a memory when my niece was young and we went down to the river, to the foreshore, and we have brown jellyfish, and there was quite a few had come up to shore, and she loved counting them, and I just thought by the 20th I'd had enough, you see.
Yeah.
But what I realised was her delight.
Yes,
her
delight.
Like you said, exuberance, delight, that it is. And my partner is an artist, but he's now doing photography, and he's taught me to open my eyes to all the little things. So when I'm a lot more observant now, and he's showing me, he loves wildlife photography and birds, and he's showing me things I don't do as an adult. I'm too busy to appreciate that, and he delights. So he comes home excited, childlike, because I've captured this most amazing image. And then he shows it to me and we have delight together.
Yes. That's childlike. One of our listeners has asked, is it like keeping a planner? So I guess that refers back to when we talked about having a gratitude journal. So essentially it's just anything that you want to write in. So it can be like an exercise book, a diary, a notepad, just somewhere where you write down all the things that you're grateful for. And I know when people start doing that for the first time, it can be quite difficult. If you're in a rough space and life is really kicking you about, it can be difficult to find things to be grateful or thankful for, can't it, Chantel? But there's always something to be grateful for, and even if that's just the fact that you're breathing in and out today.
Exactly. Exactly right. And coming back to the plan a bit, what I found was, for me, a planner is more, I'm planning my day. So that's sort of like a diary, a list of things to do. So then you combine that with your writing and your journaling. So what I do is, even the night before, I look at what my day is going to be like. How am I going to feel? How does it make me feel? So it's about learning then to look at your plan and go, you know what? Why did I do that? Why did I say yes to that? So eventually you create the day that you want.
Yes.
So there's that. Now, what was the other thing you were saying about being grateful? That's right. When I was in my acute sense of PTSD, I had a coach, part of my business, so a life coach. And I one morning just thought, how am I going to get out of bed? I didn't know what I could do, and I didn't even know I wanted the session, but I did. I dragged myself. You know what she said to me, was just coming back to your breath. She said to me, Chantal, I want you now to celebrate and honour the fact that you got out of bed. Yes.
Yeah.
You went and had a shower. I said, yes, but I went from my pajamas to my comfortable clothes. She said, that does not matter.
Doesn't matter.
The fact is you did that, and I've never forgotten that.
Yes, yes. We're just going to go to another quick break, Chantel. And when we come back, listeners, we're just going to finish off the morning ritual session with another couple of questions. So we're into our last 15 minutes of the show. And we've got Chantel with us. And just before I tell you about what's on next week's show, I just thought with Chantel still here, I'd take the opportunity to thank Chantel for being on the show this morning and talking to our listeners live. It's been a pleasure to have you on. At the end of the radio session, I'll put up Chantel's website for you all to go and have a look in the chat section on W4WN. And so you can see more about Chantel and what she does. So Chantel, thank you very much for being on my show today and telling us all the things that you have. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I hope that I can get you on again at some later date to continue talking about the things that we've talked about today. Anything else you want to tell our listeners in closing today?
Yes, thank you. Thank you to you, Tony and Rebel, but thank you to the listeners for coming on and asking and being part of this, because I just feel this is the beginning. This is the beginning for all of us. This is you intuitively, perhaps knowingly or unknowingly, knowing you needed to listen to this. And I'm just trusting that something has resonated with each one of you, no matter how small or how big, that something has sparked something in you, and you go away and you just know. And I really want to emphasize, know that we are, and I'm going to include you and I, we are all beautiful women, and we deserve to live the bestest lives. And I feel very humbled that I was able to be here with you to share my experiences. And thank you, Tony, for giving me that opportunity to do so.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Chantel, for being on the show. Now, listeners, before we throw to our final break, I just thought I'd quickly go through what we've got on our show next week. So next week we're going to be talking about women in leadership. Now, why I'm including this in our show and why I think it's why I'm so passionate about it is the fact that in the world today, there is a distinct lack of good leadership, be that male or female leadership. There's a distinct lack of leadership across the planet. And our guest next week is a wonderful woman by the name of Vanessa North. And her business helps managers and leaders develop better business relationships. So she's about the business relationships. She's got 25 years as a manager and leader, a master's degree in management, and a lifetime of working with managers and organizations on improving leadership and communication. She's learned what works and what doesn't. She's got a keen interest in assisting others to achieve their goals, learn new things that transform their work and their life, and she speaks at many conferences and events across the planet. She works as a trainer and a management consultant, and she's worked across all sorts of sectors, across health, universities, TAFE in Australia, New Zealand and Singapore. And she does lots of training around communication. She likes to cultivate in managers that there is a power in being a manager and how you use that power for good and not evil. She likes to manage the business side of things. The business side of things, she says, is relatively easy compared to the managing of people things. And often the management of people is what stumps us, and it shouldn't. She finds that most people have great intentions, but they often lose sleep when they're dealing with a difficult team or difficult team members. Or if they've struggled to have hard conversations. So her aim is to help people with those difficult work situations, difficult colleagues, and difficult working relationships. She points out too that as a manager, your staff are not your kids. And the managers often fall into the trap of behaving like a parent in the workplace, where they give orders and expect compliance and micromanage people to death. You don't want a manager like that. You don't want to be managed by that. And it's about treating people as adults and watching them step up and grow. So next week we'll be talking to Vanessa about all things management and in particular difficult work colleagues and difficult working relationships. And she will be on for the whole show again next week. And the following week, I will be live from Bali, and I'll be interviewing a wonderful guest by the name of Donna Gray and another two guests in Bali. I'll be telling you more about Bali, what it's like to travel there, what you can do there, about the people and culture of Bali. Donna will be coming on and telling you about her retreats that she runs regularly in Bali and Australia. And Leonie is with doTERRA Oils, and I'm hoping that she will be able to talk about some of the wonderful properties of the oils that she works with, and that will be live from Bali. Are you going on one of those trips the guest talked about today? Well, this trip to Bali is not with Chantel, though I am looking at I'm going to look into her Bali trips as well. The trip that I'm going on this time is with a different company called Walk with Wisdom, and Donna runs these tours to Bali twice a year, and she runs a tour in Australia. She's got some spaces in August, and I can put the contact details for Donna in the talk chat section after the radio station finishes. Donna's tours are a little different from Chantel's, so Donna incorporates a little more touristy type things, cooking classes, jewelry making classes, snorkeling adventures. She combines that with day spa treatments, reflexology treatments, and staying in beautiful 5-star resorts. So Donna's trips are a little bit different from Chantel's, but both equally wonderful places to escape to. Again, Bali is a wonderfully rejuvenative, restorative place to visit. It has an earthy, spiritual healing generated from its people. The Balinese people are very peace-loving, predominantly Hindu people, versus the other predominant population of Indonesia, which is the Javanese. But Bali is predominantly that peaceful, loving, beautiful island. There's so much to do, so many places to visit, so many temples to see, so many healings to be had, and so many massages to be enjoyed. So that's in 2 weeks' time. The show will be live from Bali. And again, next week we'll be talking management and working lifestyles. And that's just about it for me this week. A big thank you again to Rebel. We've had a little bit of a rough show this week with Skype dropping out. That's the problem of doing live radio from Australia and connecting to the US. Occasionally there's going to be some internet problems and some connection problems, but I think we've managed that quite well. Just so you know too, any of you who want to listen to the podcast versions of Radio Tony, they will be available soon on my website under Radio Tony and the podcast section. I just have to get help to set those up properly, but they will be available to listen to your favourite shows back. They'll also be available on iHeartRadio by searching for Radio Tony. And with that, I thank you all for taking the time to listen to our show this week. And thank you once again to the beautiful Chantel for coming on our show. It's been a pleasure having you, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the next year or so. And thanks everyone for listening. over to Rebel, and see you all next weekend. Thanks. Bye.